it's Sandy from parkerlings.com. I hope this finds you well today. We're in the midst of baking cookies and making fudge and candies, and I thought I'd bring you along to make one of our favorites, Scottish tablet. Scottish tablet is a whipped butter fudge, I think, for all intents and purposes. It's got a real crumbly texture and it melts in your mouth. It's just a diabetic coma waiting to happen. It's a very simple recipe, and I thought I'd bring you along as I make it. This is actually a fairly simple stovetop recipe. It calls for 4 cups of sugar that you put into a medium-sized saucepan or a large saucepan. Stainless steel works best. It then calls for milk, a scant cup of milk. After that, after you've added those 2 things together, you need to stir the milk and the sugar together in the pan just to start to moisten the sugar. My heat is not yet on. After you've stirred the milk and the sugar a little bit, you will add the butter and the condensed milk. Notice that I haven't yet turned on the burner. I'm just adding all of these ingredients first. And I should say that prior to starting this mixing, I have greased a jelly roll pan. You can use any pan, but I'm using this jelly roll pan, which is, I believe, 11 by 15. So after I've added the milk and sugar and butter, the butter is half a cup. I will then add a can, 14 ounces of condensed milk to the mix. Now we'll put the saucepan on a medium-high heat and bring it to the boil, stirring occasionally. We'll just work to let these things mix together and just keep them from burning to the bottom as it comes to the boil. I've been doing this recipe for a few years now. I think it originally came off of Pinterest. There are lots of these types of recipes on Pinterest, but I will share the recipe that I use because I have made a couple of amendments here and there. Once this comes up to the boil, we are going to stir it regularly, but let it boil gently for up to a half an hour. But initially, this boil will take about 10 minutes. The only other couple of ingredients, I'm going to add one now and one later. The first one I'm going to add is a pinch of salt, not even 1/8 of a teaspoon. The other ingredient that gets added at the end and after the saucepan is removed from the heat is vanilla. We'll come back and show you that as the process progresses. So all the butter has melted now, and we're just working to come up to temperature. I'm starting to see boiling, but we want it to be gentle. You can start to see the bubbles forming along the edges. So we're going to now let this gently boil for a half an hour. I'm going to turn the heat down ever so slightly, and I'll monitor the heat, and I will stir this occasionally. I don't know if you can tell, but it's starting to get a more golden brown color, and that's what we want. I'm just taking it off the boil a little bit, not much, just to let it simmer down a little bit. So this has gotten to be about the color that I was hoping for. So I'm going to turn off my heat at this stage and do my next step. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons, that's 2 tablespoons of vanilla to the mix. And then I'm going to use my hand mixer, which I've got set up here, to beat it vigorously until it starts to feel gritty. So here we go. Okay. I can see that it's starting to lose some of its gloss, so particularly around the edges, and it's starting to get thicker. So now I'm going to bring my pan over and simply pour it into the pan, getting it moved around as best I can. And it cools quick, so working fast here is important. It doesn't have to be perfectly into the edges, just as best you can, because once you cut it into little pieces, you won't notice anyway. Scraping as much of it out of the saucepan as I'm able. It is hot. There will be a lot left in the saucepan, but that's okay. You or your kids can lick it off, and you can use a knife to get the rest of it off as applicable. But it, like I say, it sets very quickly once it's in the pan, so you can't really move it around once you've put it into the pan. Now all we do is we leave this to set for an hour or so, and then come back once it's cooled off completely to cut it into 1-inch squares, there or thereabouts. This is a very rough recipe, to be fair. And once you've cut it into squares, it's ready to eat straight away. And here you go, the finished product. It's about an hour later, and Phil has gone ahead and broken it up into probably about 6 pieces or so. It makes quite a bit because it's very rich. But here you can see the squares and how thick they are. I hope that you have the opportunity, take the opportunity to try Scottish tablet for yourself. I hope this finds you well. Take care, and God bless. Bye.